I think this is a very interesting topic. Just check it out. I'm losing my stream of consciousness. Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is Nat. In case you haven't seen this channel before, I post mostly bookish content, like booktube content, but I've been dabbling in a little bit of like extra stuff, like tips on reading, money saving tips, eco-conscious living, things like that. If you're interested, please do subscribe and drop a like. I think it really helps in promoting the video, since this channel is kind of small. Anyway, I think if you're wondering why you should be watching my video, I guess like I'm a booktuber that's from Singapore, so I think that's kind of like reason enough to watch, in case you might be trying to diversify your subscriptions or things like that. Anyway, today's video is going to be a book haul. Disclaimer though, actually I don't really kind of endorse the act of buying too many books or like kind of like purchasing a lot of books. So I think over the past few months I've been accumulating some books, and you can check out my other book haul where I do talk about my criteria a bit closely, but it's very simple. Usually I don't really buy the books unless there's a strong reason for me to do so, which means that maybe I might be referring to the book many times in the future, or it could be a book that I want to share with friends and family, and if not, then I would get a lot of my copies from the library instead. So today's haul will have some books as well as a library book haul, so that's kind of interesting. I've broken down the books I have into I think a few categories. I have one that's on Singapore, that includes some magazines that I picked up, and also just some random books. And then I also have my book haul, which also coincidentally has a pretty strong Singapore, Southeast Asia kind of focus. So let's get into it. The first book that I want to talk about is this book called Self-Made Creative Lives in Southeast Asia. It's a book I think I picked up on books actually, and I really enjoyed this book. I think it was pretty simple to read, but it was really inspiring, because I think this is precisely the gap that I've been trying to find in my reading as well. Like, what do creative lives look like in Southeast Asia? Because I think a lot of books I've been looking about on creativity tend to be based in the US or UK, or based in some context that doesn't seem relevant to me. So this was really great to read, and they featured so many different kinds of creative people who practice different creative things in Southeast Asia. So I really enjoyed this book. And I know that the author is going to come out with a new book soon, so that's really exciting. The next book that I actually have is a review copy that was sent to me. This is Raffles' Renounced Towards a Merdeka History, by Alvin Saad, Faris Jourami, and Sai Xiumin. It's really interesting. I've been super interested in decolonizing Singapore's history for a while now. I think it first started from when I had to do a module on Singapore during the Japanese occupation, and that really opened my eyes up to how complex history actually is and how political it is. So I was really stoked when Ethos was doing this book, and especially seeing the collaboration between these editors was just so amazing. I think the three of them really have been doing so much work in Singapore, and I think it's really interesting going into the kind of like linguistic politics, as in I guess the politics around linguistics. Like Malay as a national language is a discourse that is appearing again on Twitter, I think, so that's really interesting. This is White, Behind Mental Health Stigma. It's a kind of independently published book, really amazing. It's okay, not just the design is beautiful, but I think the range of topics that it covers is really so great. This is a mental health kind of compendium, or like, is it the correct word? But it's a compilation of not just like professionals on mental health in Singapore, but so a range of lived experiences, really so many different, like it's really truly intersectional. So I would highly recommend, if you're living in Singapore, to support this book, to purchase their book. You can also gift a book forward, so you can pay for a copy that someone else can then kind of like get. And I'm super excited about this, like to share this with a lot of people. I think there is still a lot of mental health stigma in Singapore, so this is a great help in that discourse, I think, in making mental health a bit more of an approachable subject in Singapore as well. Yes, amazing. You can check out the book website as well as the Instagram. I'll put them down below. Okay, and the next two books I have, I guess not really books, but they're like magazines. So this is The Local Rebel, Educate and Empower. This is an independently published, self-published, independently published zine as well. So it's really amazing. This is the third issue. They had two prior issues, of which like I couldn't get physical copies of, but I do have the e-copies. I don't know whether they still have physical copies left, but I think it's just so amazing that the team behind this magazine was able to put up such a well-informed and as well as such a soothing and empowering magazine. And I think, I really do want to uplift the work of these people, these amazing people, and especially like I think they really do address feminism in a very intersectional way, considering race, class, sexuality as well. And I think that's amazing. I think all of them who are involved, it's really like a community of advocates in Singapore. So I think there's kind of like a common thread here. I'm trying my best to support local in a more meaningful way in sharing the ideas that they already have. The last magazine I have is Magazine for Young Girls, and it's, how do I describe this? It's like a photography magazine, and it's really beautiful. I think it just started from the idea of kind of capturing the lived experience and lived realities of young girls, and it has contributors from many different talented photographers, and I love it. I think this was also an independent project, and it's so amazing that all these independent projects get made and seen, and I'm just doing my small part, I guess, in buying these things, and I wish to continue supporting, I think, the local publishing scene as well. So really beautiful magazine, quality is great, pictures are great, stories are so heartening, and I think the idea of girlhood is something that I myself personally relate to and resonate a lot with. So that's like my kind of book haul, magazine haul on Singapore related stuff. And now moving on to like just random things. So I do have this book called The Body Keeps a Score, Mind, Brain and Body in the Transformation of Trauma. So context behind this is that I'm currently researching in hopes of crafting my own dance movement improvisational course, sort of like dance as journalism, dance as self-inflection and journaling. So that's kind of like my intention in the next few months, or at least hopefully. And this book I thought was kind of like a key book in the idea of movement being linked to trauma, or trauma being linked to physical manifestations in the body. So I thought that this would be kind of like a textbook reference for myself in truly understanding how trauma intersects with like movement in the body. So definitely it's pretty dense so far. I haven't been the best at reading it, but I've heard a lot of great reviews about this. This book has been cited so many times in so many places, so pretty glad to get a copy, and that's why I bought a physical copy, because I know I'll be taking notes. I did get this book called Amateur, A Reckoning of Gender Identity and Masculinity by Thomas Page McBee. I think I haven't really touched on trans books. I think that's a demographic that I haven't really found myself in. I did read a few books on non-binary people and of genderqueer people, because I think that's the experience that I resonate with the most. But I figured I should really give this a try, because I've been thinking so much about notions of masculinity, and so I hope this memoir will kind of help in helping me reflect upon that. The next book, I think you can kind of see a trend here. This book is called Queer Intentions, A Personal Journey Through LGBTQ Culture by Amelia Abraham. I think this is so interesting because it's a little bit like ethnography, which is why I'm drawn to it. I just have so many questions, and I'm reading all these books mainly as because I know these books aren't really available in the library, so I can't really borrow them, and I just really wanted to have like a physical manifestation of my interests and my questions in books. I think that's, yeah, selfish reasons. Okay, so the next two books are books I just got from the secondhand shop. So I kind of went bookstore hopping, I guess, with some bookstagrammers from Singapore, so that was really fun. So the first book that I got was This Bridge Called My Back, writings by radical women of colour, edited by Cherry Moraga and Gloria Anzaldua. Everything about it kind of calls to me, about radical writings, about radical women of colour especially, about the fact that the editors also had this kind of intersectional approach to feminism, like having been, being a scholar of cultural theory in Chicana studies, being a philosopher, also dabbling in queer theory, etc. I just felt like I gotta have more books like this, and since it was a secondhand book, I was pretty okay with paying the price for it and having it as a physical copy. I've never ever came across this book before, so I thought that was really cool because I am trying to broaden my feminist reads, trying to understand how feminism as a movement is developing across different contexts. So this is a great addition to that. The last book that I got as a book haul is this massive book. Actually, I did talk about this book in my quarantine reads. No, not quarantine reads. I talked about it in my top psychology books that aren't self-help. And yes, this is called The Noonday Demon by Andrew Solomon, an Atlas of Depression. It's really everything about depression, and it can be quite triggering of a read. However, I think this was a book that was truly transformational for me in terms of defining what depression is. I mean, not really defining, but kind of concretizing depression as this concept for me. Because it explores really all aspects, not all, but a lot of aspects of depression. Things like the biomedical model, kind of like the hormones, the chemicals involved, the people's lived experiences as they go through depression, the author's own kind of like making sense of depression, and I thought it was just a magnificent piece of writing. The reason why I wanted to purchase a hard copy was, first of all, I've never seen like this book anywhere else other than the library. But second of all, I think it's just such an amazing book that I want to read it again and study it again, and hopefully in the future be able to recommend it to people in a more like informed way, because I think the first time that I read it, I was kind of at a particular stage in my life where I wasn't very like, how you say, I was thinking about a lot of different things. I was quite distracted, so I do want to read this again in a more focused way. So that's why I got a physical copy. Now, so that's the end of like the books that I bought, but I'm gonna go through my library book haul as well, because this is so much more fun, right? I mean, there's just so many books. This is called Eating Her Curries and Kuay, A Cultural History of Food in Singapore by Nicole Tarlevic. So I have no idea what this book will be like. I just thought it would be so interesting because I did a previous video on the music in Singapore, the music scene in Singapore, like why Singaporeans don't seem to support local music, and I wanted to do one on food as well, and it just so happened I found this book which seemed to be a complete perfect fit to that question of why is it that we have such a strong kind of attachment to the food that we have in Singapore. I have my own theories, but we'll see if those theories are right when I read this book, see whether I agree or not. Then the next book I got was Nature Contained, Environmental Histories of Singapore by Timothy Barnett. I did read a book called Imperial Creatures by Timothy Barnett as well. Timothy Barnett is a pretty well-known, I guess, scholar of environmental histories in Singapore. He has written quite a lot of books, not just like about the colonial period, but I think like also moving towards the post-colonial and like modern period of Singapore. I haven't really touched the book yet. I borrowed it quite a while back. I might have to skim this before I return it, unfortunately. The book that I have here is called Writing the Modern, Selected Texts on Art and Art History in Singapore, Malaysia and Southeast Asia. It's edited by T.K. Sabapathy, and it's an anthology of prominent writings. This is an anthology of writings by Singaporean art historian T.K. Sabapathy. If you might have noticed, or you might not have noticed if you are new to my channel, I've been thinking a lot about art in the context of Singapore and the region. I think I made a commitment for 2021 to read more regionally and locally, so I am putting a lot of emphasis on making sure that I make sure I read as much as I can about my area, like my place, which is in Singapore. And this seemed to be pretty perfect. I'm totally new to art history. I don't have any background in art history. I'm just an anthro nerd. But I'll be interested to see what I can glean from this really heavy book. This is called In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I've heard so many great reviews about this book, and that's the main reason why I wanted to read it. It's kind of like a memoir, but it kind of goes around a lot of different genres. It's also kind of like a commentary on queer relationships and on trauma in relationships. I think that is something that I've been wanting to read about. I don't think a lot of books do talk about that, so that's very interesting. Now, the last book of this extremely long video is this book called The Reinvention of Humanity, A Story of Race, Sex, Gender, and the Discovery of Culture by Charles King. I mean, I studied anthropology in school, and I've always read about these, these academics in a very, school environment, college environment. I'm interested to see what this book has to say about that. It's a kind of like a biography of anthropologists, which is crazy and mind-blowing, because usually anthropologists are the ones that are writing stories about other people, but this is a story about anthropologists. So I do wonder what the tone will be like, whether it is kind of like well-informed, whether it's contemporary, because anthropology doesn't have the best reputation. It did originate from colonial roots, so there's a lot of that like post-colonial kind of hangover that anthropology is still kind of grappling with today. So I wonder how that book might or might not address that as well. So yeah, interesting. It's really thick though. I don't know how I'm gonna read all these books. Anyway, that's it from me. Thanks so much for staying all the way if you did. I think having all these books have been super fun for me. I think it's a really enjoyable experience to be able to read about Singapore and about the region, as well as just go further into my interests. Like things about anthropology, things about queer relationships, about queer culture, etc., and about feminism as well, and how that intersects with so many other things in life, especially with race. I think that's super important to grapple with, especially in Singapore, where we might not really regard identity so easily as very complex concepts. It's very easy for us to collapse into like very one-dimensional identity markers, like, oh, you are Chinese, you are male, etc. But actually in reality we are such a complicated mess of identities. I think it's great to be able to kind of address that in my reading, and hopefully also show that in my everyday life. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and do let me know what you think about the books. What do you think about, are these titles that you've read before? Are you interested in picking some of them up? Have you read stuff from Singapore? I guess I'm trying to read more from Singapore, so any comment would be really helpful for that. And yeah, thanks for watching, and do like the video and subscribe if you want to. I guess it really helps to see what content people might be more interested in. So yeah, that's all from me. See you next time, and cool, stay safe, and I hope you have a good rest tonight. If not, I hope tomorrow will be a much better day for you. But if not, it's also okay. Just chill, relax, and hopefully we'll see you thriving in the next video. So yes.